Look, every time we think Lamar Jackson is finally going to get a quiet week, something drops out of the sky just to drag his name into another debate. The guy was literally just trying to get healthy, knocking the rust off in practice, easing back into the rhythm after taking a couple of hits. And suddenly there's this whole wave of noise coming his way again. And it all kicked back up because someone decided to slap his name at the top of a list no quarterback wants to be on. It's wild how often Lamar ends up in the crosshairs even when he's done nothing but mind his business and prepare for the next opponent. And this is all happening during a week when the Ravens are gearing up for what should be a straightforward job, going into Cleveland, taking care of business, and finally getting a clean sweep against the Browns again after missing that chance. Since the year 2020, every season this matchup brings some kind of weird twist. And this time, it's the Ravens fighting to climb back to a balanced record after digging themselves out of that 1-5 start. They've worked hard to get back to even ground. Just to let the Browns be that stumbling block again, this is the moment to rewrite that script. Especially with Baltimore finally looking closer to whole. Lamar's return to the practice field should have been the headline. He said he felt good. He was moving around well. Just the usual bumps and bruises you expect from mid-season football. Nothing dramatic. Nothing alarming. Business as usual for a guy who plays the sport at full throttle every week. A healthy Lamar. Heading into Sunday should have been a moment of relief for everyone who follows this team. But instead of celebrating that, people latched onto something else entirely. Somebody tossed out an article ranking the most overrated quarterbacks in the league today. And to make things even more ridiculous, the cover photo wasn't even Lamar, it was Jordan Love. Which made you think, all right, maybe this is one of those silly lists that tries to stir the pot in the middle of the week. But then you scroll down and there it is, Lamar Jackson sitting at number 1. And you just have to ask yourself, what are we doing here? How do people keep coming back to this narrative? No matter what the guy accomplishes, the write-up didn't just call him overrated, it pushed the idea that he might be one of the most overrated quarterbacks of all time. That's such an outrageous stretch that it feels like the point wasn't even to make a real argument, but just to poke a giant fan base. And wait for the predictable chaos. They tried to back it up by talking about postseason results and comparing his credentials to legendary multi-MVP players, completely ignoring context, teammates, injuries, coaching changes, everything that actually paints the full picture of a quarterback's career. And the wild part is that they had to twist themselves into knots to do it because Lamar's regular season record is absurdly good, a winning percentage over 700 is not something you luck into, and yet, instead of acknowledging the growth he's shown every single season, they tossed out this idea that his MVP awards were somehow inflated. That's the kind of take that makes you stop reading and wonder what the actual intent was, because nobody who watches football regularly can see Lamar's tape, see his production, see the way defenders have to prepare for him, and walk away thinking, yeah, this guy is being overhyped. There's no universe where that's a real conclusion. And of course, former players took notice, including some who know Lamar personally and have played alongside him. One of them spoke up and basically said what everyone was thinking. This is what the media landscape has become. People say anything for attention now. It doesn't matter if it's fair or accurate or rooted in reality, as long as it draws clicks and sparks arguments. And honestly, he's right. Because if you're watching what Lamar is doing this season, what he's been doing throughout his career, you realize pretty quickly that overrated is probably the exact opposite of the truth. Think about how this team has looked with him versus without him. It's night and day. We watched a stretch of games without Lamar that made it painfully clear he's the engine that makes this entire system function. Even the coaching staff has hinted at it over the years without outright saying it. The offense is different when he's out there. The defense plays with a different energy when he's out there. Opponents change their entire preparation week because he's out there. That's not overrated. That's foundational. And when you look at the numbers he's putting up, it's even harder to understand the logic behind the criticism. His touchdown percentage so far this season is tracking at a historic pace. He's protecting the football better than most quarterbacks in the league. He's been efficient, explosive, calm in the pocket, deadly outside the pocket, and his decision-making has grown sharper every year. These aren't the traits of someone who's coasting off hype. These are the traits of someone who is actively redefining what the position can be, but people cling to the same tired playoff narrative. ignoring the fact that football is the ultimate team sport. Lamar could put up a perfect stat line and still get blamed if the rest of the roster falls apart around him. Meanwhile, there are quarterbacks who have never sniffed a Super Bowl, never won an MVP, never carried their franchise the way Lamar has. And yet somehow they avoid these labels entirely. It's a double standard that never seems to go away. And it feels even more ridiculous when former greats like Dan Marino are revered, as they should be. Despite never winning the big one, nobody calls Marino overrated. Nobody calls him fraudulent. They respect his talent, his impact, his legacy. So why is Lamar the one who gets hit with these strange, inconsistent expectations? Why is he the one who gets called overrated after stacking up accomplishments most players only dream about? That's why these conversations keep happening, not because fans want drama, but because letting takes like that slide only reinforces a narrative that was never fair to begin with. Lamar deserves better than that, and the craziest part is, if he keeps playing at this pace, if he stays healthy and continues evolving as a passer and playmaker, we might look back on this era and realize he wasn't just underrated. He was underappreciated in real time, and all of this, it dropped on his day off. The guy couldn't even enjoy a break without someone throwing his name into the fire. Yet when you watch how teammates talk about him, how former players talk about him, how coaches rave about him, you see the reality. He's respected where it matters most, inside the league, inside locker rooms, on the field where the truth can't really be twisted. And while all that noise was swirling around Lamar, the team was shifting focus to something a lot more important than pointless debates, getting their offense back in rhythm. One of the biggest storylines this week has been the spark Keaton Mitchell brings every time he steps onto the field. It's funny how quickly the energy changes the moment number 3 checks into the huddle. You can almost feel the defense tense up, because they know exactly what kind of speed is about to come at them. What still blows people's minds is how long it took for him to get real opportunities. Fans saw the flashes in the preseason when he was cutting through defenses like they didn't exist. And yet week after week he sat inactive or barely used. He never complained publicly, but anyone could tell the situation was eating at him. When you're a competitor with that kind of burst, watching from the sideline is its own kind of punishment. And then when he finally did get touches, the entire offense suddenly felt lighter, faster, more dangerous. That's why when he spoke this week, you could hear both the frustration and the gratitude woven together. He admitted it's been tough to stay patient through limited playing time, especially after the injury he had to fight through, but he didn't sound bitter. He sounded hungry, determined, and ready to make the most of every snap he gets. He even said he hopes he can make something shake this weekend, which is exactly the kind of quiet confidence this team needs heading into a divisional matchup. And the thing about Keaton is that he completely changes the dimensions of the run game. The offensive line hasn't been at its best at opening clean lanes, but with a runner like him, you don't need a massive gap. You give him even a sliver of daylight and suddenly everyone is turning their heads, because he's already past the second level. That's what makes him such a problem for defenses. They barely have time to react before he's gone. It also takes pressure off Lamar. Defenses have to dedicate so much energy to containing the quarterback that when a back with this kind of acceleration hits the field, it forces them to hesitate. And hesitation is the last thing you want when Baltimore runs the ball downhill. It feels like the Ravens finally tapped into something they should have been using much earlier in the season. But at least they found it before things got too late. Now it's a matter of building around it and trusting it. And that's the part that fans are clinging to. Baltimore doesn't just need explosive plays. They need identity. They need something to lean on when games get tight in the fourth quarter. And Keaton feels like the missing puzzle piece that helps everything else fall into place. The confidence he shows, even as a young player fighting for bigger opportunities, spreads across the huddle. It's like every time he breaks off a long run, the entire team exhales just a little bit. But this week brings its own set of challenges. Cleveland's defense, even in a down year, always finds a way to make things ugly. They love dragging the game into a slugfest, especially at home. And they've given the Ravens trouble more often than Baltimore fans would like to admit. Every time these to face off, something unexpected happens. And while the Browns haven't looked great recently, that doesn't change the fact that divisional games tend to ignore logic. That's why having Lamar healthy is so important. That's why leaning into this new offensive spark is so important. The Ravens can't afford to stumble now. They worked too hard clawing their way back to 5-5 after that miserable 1-5 start. This is where they build momentum, not lose it. And Keaton Mitchell is becoming a big part of that shift. Listening to him talk about watching film from the earlier matchup and preparing for his first real shot against the Browns, you could see the excitement in his tone. He said he didn't play in the last game between the teams, so he's relying on what he's seen on tape. But there's something about the way he said he can't wait. It didn't sound like a routine answer. It sounded like a guy who knows he has an opportunity to tilt a game if he gets the ball in his hands, and the coaching staff knows it too. They've hinted that they want to find more ways to get him on the field, even if it means shifting carries away from veterans. And honestly, that's what great teams do. They adapt, they evolve. They don't cling to depth charts out of loyalty when someone is clearly bringing something special. Keaton doesn't need 20 carries to change a game. He just needs touches in the right moments, and when he gets them, the whole offense wakes up. Pairing that with Lamar's playmaking brings a level of danger Baltimore desperately needs. Because when Lamar starts pulling linebackers one way and Keaton slices back the other direction, you can hear the panic in the crowd even through the broadcast. That's the kind of fear this offense used to instill regularly. And tapping back into that could be the thing that sends them on a real second-half surge. So here they are again, heading into a divisional battle with all eyes on them, trying to tune out the outside noise and focus on what actually matters. Lamar shaking off the ridiculous criticism, Keaton fighting his way into a bigger role. The offense trying to rediscover its identity. All of it converging in a week where they absolutely need a statement win. Because beating the Browns doesn't just help the standings. It helps the mindset. It sends a message that this team, even after everything, is still dangerous, still improving, still capable of wrecking plans for anyone in their way. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. There's a storm brewing in Baltimore, and it's not the weather. Whispers around the league suggest that the Ravens front office has shifted into high gear, with not one, not two, but three potential targets suddenly catching fire on their radar. What was once quiet background noise has turned into full-blown chatter in league circles, and insiders say that the organization's recent moves might be the first sparks of something bigger. While no official word has come out of the Ravens camp, and as always, the front office remains as tight-lipped as ever. Multiple reports indicate that the team is weighing several options to reinforce key areas before the final stretch. The timing of these developments has raised eyebrows, especially considering how aggressively Baltimore has been monitoring the market lately. One name reportedly making waves is a familiar face with ties to the AFC North, a player who could immediately bolster the team's physical identity. Another is said to be a young, dynamic talent whose skill set fits perfectly with the Ravens' evolving offensive vision. The third, a wild card, a veteran presence whose leadership and playoff experience could tilt the balance. In the locker room, each of these targets brings something unique. And the idea that all three discussions have heated up simultaneously has sent fans and analysts into speculation overdrive. Sources close to the situation describe a sense of urgency within the organization, hinting that the Ravens' decision-makers may be ready to pounce if the right conditions align. They're not standing still, one insider reportedly said. They know what they need. And they're not afraid to move if the opportunity feels right. What makes the moment particularly intriguing is how synchronized the buzz seems to be. It's rare for three potential acquisitions to gain traction at once, rarer still for all of them to fit the Ravens system so neatly. Whether this is smoke or the first sign of a real fire, something is definitely stirring in Baltimore. Fans might want to keep their eyes peeled. Because when rumors start converging like this, history suggests that the Ravens are about to make noise, the kind that echoes across the league. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.